What is good, YouTube? It's the Babbling Bros. I'm Dan.
I'm Taylor.
And today we have some baseball news for you. Some big offseason acquisitions and some to still be determined.
So, first things first, as many of you probably already know, the Yankees have re-signed DJ LeMahieu. That's huge for the Yankees. As we talked about a little bit in the Lindor trade video, he is a player that can really round off the Yankees lineup. I mean, when you look at the Yankees lineup, there's not many holes. I mean, you have Gary Sanchez at catcher, who he's very, very streaky, to say the least. I mean, when he's on, and he's a good player. But when he's off, he is off. But then you have Luke Voit at first base. Good player, power player. You have Estrada at second. LeMahieu at third. Torres at shortstop. Clint Frazier in left field. Hicks in center field. Aaron Judge in right field. And Stanton at DH. I mean, there's so many different ways you can put that lineup together for it to be successful.
So the DJ LeMahieu signing was absolutely massive for the Yankees. Like Taylor said, it completely fills out their lineup. DJ LeMahieu was the best hitter in baseball last year, and he is one of the most underrated players in baseball. Ever since he played for the Colorado Rockies, he was always an all-star caliber player. You know, his glove is not too shabby either. I mean, he plays second base. He could also be slotted in the third base position if you need, even the first base position. So he adds some flexibility in the infield as well. You know you're going to get average out of him. He batted .327
in 2019. 364 in 2020.
You know he's going to get on base. You know he's going to hit for average. He'll give you, I don't know how many games this upcoming season is, but if it's a full season, he'll give you maybe 20 home runs, maybe even more at Yankee Stadium. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, in 2019, the last full season he played, he had 26 home runs. So, I mean, especially with the rest of the lineup, I mean, you have Aaron Judge, you have Giancarlo Stanton, you have Luke Voit, you have Gary Sanchez. Those are all power hitters.
The only problem I see with this lineup, second base, we'll see how Estrada is. He's a new guy, so you're going to have to wait and see, Yankee fans. But the only problem I have with this lineup is the streakiness of the lineup. You know, Gary Sanchez, he's either hot or he's not, and it's a big discrepancy between the two. Luke Voit is a little bit more consistent, but the same thing, he's a power guy. He's going to strike out a lot. Aaron Judge, a little bit more consistent than Gary Sanchez as well, but he could strike out a couple of times a game. But Aaron Judge is a stud. I wouldn't worry about Aaron Judge at all. Giancarlo Stanton, also a stud. Wouldn't really worry about him too much, but you know he's going to strike out 4 times a game, a couple of times throughout the season. There aren't many quote-unquote get-on-base guys. It's all guys who are going to drive in the runs. You need the guys at the top of the lineup who are going to get on base. So DJ LeMahieu is that person.
I mean, so is Torres, though.
Gleyber Torres is that person as well.
So, I mean, I feel like this Yankees lineup is really rounded off pretty well. You can have Torres in the leadoff spot. You could have LeMahieu second or third. And then you have power right behind them in Judge, Stanton, Voit. You're going to have power throughout the whole lineup. You could even put Aaron Judge up in the second or third spot and put one of the on-base guys in LeMahieu or Torres down low. There's so many different ways you can put this lineup to make it successful. And, I mean, Estrada, I don't really know much about him. He's still pretty new. But from what I've heard, he's pretty good, I guess. He's new. It's hard to tell. But
yeah, I don't see any.
I mean, then we also have Ursula on the bench.
Urshela, yeah.
Urshela, sorry. I always mispronounce that.
It's the same thing. People say it different ways. He only knows the real way.
But, I mean, you have depth in the lineup, too, because you have him on the bench. You have, drawing a blank.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying this Yankees lineup is not good. This lineup is exceptional. I think it's a top 5 lineup in the MLB. Not as good as the Mets. But This lineup is definitely something to fear. DJ LeMahieu's signing was huge. Gary Sanchez, though, I'm not a Gary Sanchez fan. He's
very streaky.
To put it kindly, he's god awful behind the plate. He can't catch the pitching staff, man. He cannot. Luke Voigt, I think he had a couple of glimpses of being a star, but I think he's gonna have a breakout year this year. It all boils down to what type of Giancarlo Stanton are you gonna get? Are you gonna get the Stanton that hits 220 but hits 50 dingers? Are you gonna get the Stanton who hits 275 and also hits 50 dingers?
I mean, I think the biggest thing with this lineup that's going to make the whole lineup successful is with so much here, you can't pitch around anyone. You have to pitch to everyone. Mm-hmm. And if you let's say you pitch around Aaron Judge, right behind him is going to be Stanton or Voigt or LeMahieu or whoever. There's going to be people right behind him that can now drive that run in.
That's why you need to. I know you said you think you can configure the lineup in so many ways, but I don't see various ways to configure this lineup. You have to configure it in a certain type of way. You can't leave Stanton out to dry, because if I'm a pitcher, slider away, chase, strike three. Okay, next batter. Aaron Judge, slider away, fastball low, because he likes the high fastballs. He always turns on and hits them out. But you have to configure those two in the correct position so they won't get pitched that way. And DJ LeMahieu is a huge signing. Gleyber Torres is huge for this team.
I mean, even Clint Frazier.
Clint Frazier, he spent some time in the minors, but only because their lineup has been so damn good. Any other team, and he's a starting outfielder for the past 2, maybe 3 years.
Absolutely.
So I like Clint Frazier. He always wears the sick Jordans, too.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year, and it's going to be a fun year between Mets and Yankees fans and arguing about which lineup is better, in my opinion.
This Mets-Yankees Subway Series this year is going to be intense and fun to watch.
That's for sure.
The Yankees need to get another pitcher.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have Garrett Cole. We have...
you have Severino.
That's who I was trying to think of. Behind them...
I honestly can't think off the top of my head right now.
Nobody really outstanding.
Hey, let's see. Do you want to look it up? Or you want me to look it up?
Doesn't matter. You can look it up real quick.
I'm gonna look it up really quick. I was just looking up Powerball. Powerball's huge. Anyway, Yankees pitching rotation. Let's see. Garrett Cole. Oh yes, they just signed Corey Kluber.
Forgot about.
They just signed Corey Kluber, which is huge. He's 34 years old. He's on the decline. However, he's a consistent starter. I don't think he's going to give you under a 3.1 ERA, not even 3.2. It might be like a 3.5 ERA, but that's pretty good for a number 3 starter. You got Garrett Cole, you have Luis Severino, and then after that, it's just pretty bad. But the bullpen's pretty fire. You have Zach Britton, Adam Ottavino, Chad Green, Aroldis Chapman, Devi Garcia. You need another starting pitcher.
I agree.
You should look at Trevor Bauer.
I mean, I don't know if the Yankees have the money to spend on someone like Bauer, but
we'll see.
I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year. I mean, there's definitely still time in the offseason to make a couple moves. I was reading that Tanaka's still in contact with the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we could get him as a 4 or 5 starter, I wouldn't hate it if it's for the right price, but...
I wouldn't mind.
I said last video when we talked about Lindor and we talked about the Yankees a little bit, I'm not a huge Tanaka guy because of how hot or cold he is. There's no in the middle with him.
Yeah, Tanaka is a good 4 or 5. If you get him for a 4 or 5, that's fine. But did they say he was going to sign with the Yankees?
No, they didn't. What I was reading, it said he's likely to pitch somewhere else, but he's still been in contact with them, so it's still a possibility.
Yeah, so you guys maybe make a trade, I don't know, for a starting pitcher. Maybe you'll sign another starting pitcher. Corey Kluber was a huge acquisition, though. So that's big.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, definitely an interesting lineup, but there's still a lot left in free agency, including Springer. I mean, I'm not saying the Yankees are going to sign him because I don't see any way possible that happens. But from what I've been reading, the Mets and the Blue Jays have been big front runners on Springer. There's a lot going on with it, though. I read that his decision could come this week. I read that both teams offered him 9-figure salaries. But I based off what I've been reading, I don't see the Mets signing him for a couple reasons. One of those is because the Mets don't want to go over the tax. I was reading.
I forgot what it's called. Luxury tax.
Yeah, the luxury tax. And signing Springer, you're gonna have to pay him, and it's gonna make it very hard not to go over that luxury tax unless maybe you deal someone. I was reading that maybe Mats would be an option to deal, but who knows? There's a lot going on with that. The other thing too is the uncertainty with DH in the NL. In 2020, because of COVID and just the whole craziness of everything going on, they had a universal DH in the MLB. So they had a DH in the NL for the first time in probably ever, right?
Ever. No, I think it used to be universal back in like the 20s, but
okay,
basically forever.
so it's for the first time ever, and they're not sure what's going to go on with it this year. But if they don't have a DH, Dominic Smith and Pete Alonso both play first base, and if they don't have a DH, in order to play both of them, Smith would have to play left field. But if you sign Springer plays center field, Nimmo slides to left, then Dominic Smith is out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another concern that I was reading that the Mets have, which makes a lot of sense to me. If you're going to, why pay that much money for someone like Springer if
you're creating frustration within the organization? So my take on this as a Mets fan is, if you can sign George Springer, even if you go over the luxury tax a little, sign George Springer. George Springer is the top 10 outfielder. He's sick. But based on what Taylor just said, I like Dom Smith's bat in the lineup. So it's going to create some iffy situations. If the Mets were to sign George Springer, my ideal situation would be Conforto in right, Springer in center, and Dom Smith in left field, and Nimmo comes off the bench. Nimmo hasn't proven enough to me to be an everyday starter. But that's not going to happen, and it looks like Springer's leaning towards the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are also offering Springer a little bit more money. They're offering him, I think, 5 or 6 years, $110 million, where the Mets are more like 5 or 6 years, $90 to $100 million, and $20 million. That's a big difference. So who knows? But one more thing I want to say was that, I'm not a fan of the universal DH. I think pitchers hitting is a part of the game. It adds strategy to the game. It gives the managers a purpose on how to manage the game. It just differentiates between a good manager, a great manager, and a bad manager.
When you say that, you mean like as to when to pull the pitcher and like pinch hit for him and stuff like that?
Yeah, when to pull him, when to pinch hit, when to bunt, when to do a squeeze bunt, when to do a sacrifice bunt, where to place the pitcher in the batting order, because the pitcher is sometimes placed in the 8 position instead of the 9 position, because the 9 position is like starting lineup all over again, so it goes 9-1-2, stuff like that. That's my opinion on it. But I would love to see George Springer on the Mets.
I mean, the other concern that I would have if the Mets did sign Springer is you have Lindor as a free agent next year. That's going to make it tough because you're going to have to pay Lindor too,
Yeah, if the Mets sign Springer, I can't foresee them holding on to Lindor and Springer both for a long time. It might be a 1-2 year thing. I don't know how long.
I don't see.
Oh, wait, Springer. Ooh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because they're gonna if they get Springer now, they're gonna be paying him. They have to get him.
They're gonna be paying Lindor no matter what. Lindor has made it clear that he wants to re-sign with the Mets. They're gonna re-sign Lindor.
Right, but if they sign Springer, it's gonna make it tough because they're gonna have to pay him too. He's not gonna take a short-term 1 or 2 year deal.
Yeah,
he's not gonna take that. So that's another thing that is in my mind with the Mets.
And then that's another thing, like they won't re-sign Conforto when Conforto's contract is up if they sign Springer.
Yeah.
So maybe it's.
So
I would love to see Springer on the Mets, but now looking at the entire picture, you just brought to my attention. Maybe it's not a good idea to sign him.
Right. It's one of those things. It's like, all right, yeah, for this year, it's going to be great, but looking forward to the future can make a lot of things confusing.
Yeah. Okay. So now my new opinion is don't sign Springer and sign Jackie Bradley Jr. to a much cheaper contract where you get 3/4 the production of what you get for George Springer. That's my new opinion on it. But I love you, George Springer. George Springer, can I tell I want to tell a George Springer story. So, I went to spring training in 2017 when George Springer was on the Astros, and he signed my ball on the field, or at the field. I was over and he signed it. Then he was leaving the parking lot in his, I don't know what kind of car it was. I think it was all blacked out, including the windows, Lamborghini. And I saw him, and I wasn't supposed to jump the barrier, but he saw me waving. He rolled down his window, and he's like, come here. So I jumped the barrier. The security guard yelled at me. I went up to his window. He signed my ball. And then he gave me a fist bump. He closed his window, and then I came back, and the security guard yelled at me. So I love George Springer. George Springer is sick.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I mean,
but yeah, that has nothing to do with anything. George Springer is sick. I will always be a George Springer fan now.
I have a hard time liking anyone that was on the Astros.
I know, but if you also look on, there's a video I watched. It tells you the percentages of the players, like the players' percentages of the cheating used. So the highest on that list was Jose.
Altuve, probably.
No, it wasn't Altuve. It was Altuve was the lower one. Dang, I can't think. Carlos Beltran. Carlos Beltran was one of the highest percentages using it. Josh Reddick.
How do they figure that out?
Carlos Correa was a high percentage because they went back and they looked at every single at bat and they calculated it based on the bang that you could hear. But they don't know if they actually. Yeah, they don't know if they used more at away games because away games it was a little bit different.
But even still, like how do you tell if someone used the bang or not? How do you tell?
Hear it. You could hear it.
Right.
You hear it on the cameras.
I'm sure you can't hear it every time. Audio. Right, but I'm sure you can't hear it every time through the
That's
audio.
what I'm saying. It's kind of
like one of those things.
Yeah.
But like my issue, like even if Springer is the lowest person, almost never used that advantage, he knew it was going on and didn't do anything about it.
They all knew what was going on.
So he's just as guilty as everybody else, in my opinion.
He is just,
and that's why I have a hard time liking anybody that was on that team.
I agree, and I have a hard time accepting what they did as a baseball fan. But I went to Astros spring training, and they're all pretty chill. Like, Carlos Beltran signed an autograph for me. George Springer signed 2. Jose Altuve signed an autograph for me.
I mean, yeah, but even like Beltran, I loved Beltran. He was on the Yankees. He was on the Mets. I loved him. And I found out that was a thing, and
it's disgusting.
It disgusts me.
Yeah, I agree. That's not even what this video is supposed to be about, but we just got into it.
I mean, the name of our show is Babbling Bros. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just one of those things. I don't know, man.
It's hard to accept someone and for who they are based on what they've done. Like, that's just terrible. And like,
I'm a big guy on actions speak louder than words, and these players can apologize all they want, and it means nothing to me because they did it. I mean, if you're in the MLB, you are a good athlete, you're a good player, like you're not there for no reason. You don't need to cheat.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to get better,
ridiculous.
Hit the gym in the off season, hit the batting cages in the off season, hit the field, take ground balls, take pop flies,
you got to be furious because they knocked out the Yankees like twice, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that year the Yankees were the
favorite.
Yeah,
and they were in the ALCS, and Jose Altuve hit a dinger off Aroldis Chapman, who's one of the hardest pitchers to face in baseball.
Because he knew what was coming.
Because he knew what was coming to win the game. And the Yankees said bye-bye, and the Astros went to the World Series.
Yeah.
And the Yankees... See, that's what pisses me off, because the Yankees were so damn good. Like, the Yankees could have 2 World Series titles right now in the last 5 years, and we'll never know.
Yeah, because...
If they would have had it or not.
Because of cheaters.
Because the Astros cheated. That's awful. I salute to the Astros because screw the Yankees, but also, damn, like that's ridiculous.
It's the same thing as to why I hate the Patriots. I can't stand cheating.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the whole Patriots organization, I can't stand them because they cheated.
Well, there was like multiple things. What was it?
Dude, I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and they said that they liked Boston, and I was like, oh, I hate Boston because of their sports teams and this and that, and they were like, oh, I love the Patriots, and I was like, I hate the Patriots, they're cheaters, and they were like, no, they're not, and I was like, so I literally went on Google and wrote Patriots cheating scandals, and a list of 30 things came up that I never even heard of, and I literally just screenshotted everyone and sent it to this person, but the big ones were Deflategate against the Colts in the playoffs. They deflated the ball so Tom Brady could get a better grip on the ball. And Spygate, when they were filming other teams' practices. I believe it was practices.
That's awful.
And trying to steal signs and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So
here's something. It's the last thing I really want to talk about because I just thought of it. 90% of pitchers in Major League Baseball cheat. You might be like, how's that possible? What do you mean 90% cheat? I'll tell you the reason why. Foreign substance used to create more grip and stickiness on the baseball. Okay? They put it on their glove, the inside of their glove. They put it on their neck sometimes. They put it on their wrist. They put it on the brim of their cap. They even rub it directly on the ball. So basically, they use this substance to get more spin rate on curveballs. It creates more spin, more downward tilt. And also, it helps with their location of their pitches so it doesn't go everywhere. And they get more strikeouts instead of walks. Garrett Cole of the Yankees is one of the most important people who used this foreign substance to cheat. And what did it get him? A $340 million contract. Trevor Bauer talked about this. Trevor Bauer is a free agent right now. He talked about this issue. He said 90% of pitchers in the MLB use it. He uses it sometimes. Garrett Cole uses it because they were college teammates. And a whole slew of MLB pitchers use it. But the MLB takes no action against it because it's not really a big deal. It actually helps the game. In addition, sometimes you'll see pitchers in the MLB get caught for using illegal substances and the managers will call them out. That's actually a really big issue because the other teams and players take exception to that because every player uses it and it's an unwritten rule not to call out another pitcher for using the substance. And it creates a lot of tension. So that's something that I didn't know until I recently heard it from Trevor Bauer. And it's really interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, I've seen pitchers get caught doing that before. And
yeah.
I was like, who cares kind of thing. Like, that's something minor to me.
It's like a part of the game.
Because to me, that's almost like wide receivers in football wearing gloves. Like, it's the same kind of concept.
It's the same exact concept, yeah.
So, that's why, to me, that's not a big deal. But when you're sitting there literally stealing signs like the Astros did,
that's
and then
awful, yeah.
transmitting that to the batter at the plate, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's like, even though technically that rule is cheating, because it's so widely accepted, it's not. And everybody
really
does
cheating.
it. It's not really cheating because everybody uses it.
Yep. And it's actually beneficial to the sport because imagine you didn't use it and a 100-mile-per-hour fastball slips out of your hand and hits a guy directly in his jaw. You know? Although it may create more spin rate on a ball and help with better location, I think it's beneficial to the game. And as long as you don't use it plainly in sight and say, hey, I'm using this substance, like, look at me, it's all over my glove, whatever. No big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting, topic, though. Because it's like, it brings up one of those things. It's like, when's enough enough? Like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah. It's like with the NFL, like, I don't know much about, like, little stuff about the NFL, but do any wide receivers, like, use sticky stuff on their gloves to gain an advantage?
Not really so much anymore because the gloves are just so advanced.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, they used to use Stickum, it's called. And
Stickum,
before gloves were what they are now, they wouldn't really wear gloves. Gloves were more of a lineman thing back in the day. and they would use stick 'em, and it's almost like glue, so the ball just sticks to your hand when it hits your hand.
That's like bad though. Like I don't like that in the NFL. I think the NFL I wonder if the NFL has like rules on what gloves are allowed and what gloves are not allowed, because I've worn like football gloves before and it helps tremendously, especially if you don't have massive hands. If you have average hands like I do, like those gloves mean everything.
Yeah, and I mean, like the thing with most gloves too, that I mean anybody could buy them. I've used gloves in games and whatever, but if you just wet the gloves down, usually players will use their own saliva and stuff, spit on their hands, wipe them together, clean them off, pat them down. They become sticky.
Mm-hmm.
Like so. It's kind of like stick 'em, but literally everybody does it, so it's not really creating an unfair advantage.
It's just widely accepted.
So,
it's like you're not allowed to, but everybody does it, so that it's
they're allowed to. Like there's no rule against it.
Okay.
But it's one of those things, and it honestly, it's one of those things that you want to sit there and think, should this be a part of the game? Like, should this be allowed? Like, because the gloves do give these players an advantage. Otherwise, they wouldn't wear them.
Mm-hmm.
Or should it be based more on natural talent?
I like the gloves, personally.
I mean, it creates for crazy catches.
That's
like the Odell catch, or
it's a business. If it creates for crazy catches, like,
and again, it's not creating an unfair advantage, so it's okay. Mm-hmm. But I know there's some football enthusiasts out there, and I've debated this in my head too, but there's some out there that say it takes away from the skill aspect of the game because it makes it so much easier.
Interesting.
So it's just one of those things. It's one of those where you sit there and you're like, huh, that's interesting, something to think about.
One more thing to say. If you want to do a little research about what I said about the foreign substance for pitchers on baseball, look up baseball sticks to Yadier Molina's catcher equipment. Ball was thrown, it bounced in the dirt, he went to block it, and the ball literally stuck to his catcher's equipment. Not in a crevice or anything, just stuck to it. And it was like, where's the ball? Where's the ball? And there it was, just stuck to the equipment. And nothing happened. They didn't expect anything because everybody, even the umpires, know they used the substance. It was really funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But,
that's all.
I mean, I think that's it. I'm interested to see what happens with Springer, and we might find out this week.
We might find out. Till next time, I guess.
Yeah.
And girls, maybe.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let your friends know about us if you enjoy watching us. Until next time, we'll catch y'all later.